Thank you for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to begin the 62nd TIEC Cross-Cultural Seminar. I am Goto, your Master of Ceremonies for today. Thank you again for joining us. To begin, we'd like to share a message from our event host. Keiji Maruyama, Director of the Student Exchange Department, Japan Student Services Organization. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Maruyama, the Executive Director of the Student Exchange Department, Japan Student Services Organization. Thank you very much for joining the Kokusai-juku TIEC Cross-Cultural Seminar. We invite leading experts across Japan as lecturers in order to provide opportunities for participants to deepen understanding of Japan and Japanese cultures with multifaceted aspects. Today's theme is the history of Japan, shaped by earthquakes. By collecting and organizing data on natural disasters throughout Japan and encouraged in research that contribute to disaster prevention from a geographical perspective, and we have invited Ms. Hinako Suzuki from Senshu University on this theme. There have been so many earthquakes in Japan from the past. We have lived with the earthquakes. So when earthquake happened, what to react and what we should do, I hope you can learn from today's lectures and apply to your daily learnings. And after the lecture, starting at 2:40 p.m., you will be also experiencing a simulation vehicle of earthquake. I hope today's session will be meaningful for you, and this concludes my opening remarks. Well, it was a message from Keiji Maruyama, Executive Director of the Student Exchange Department, Japan Student Services Organization. We now begin part 1 of the seminar. In part 1, the theme is the history of Japan shaped by earthquakes, and Ms. Hinako Suzuki will provide a lecture on the theme. Ms. Suzuki worked as a special engineer at the National Research Institute for Earth Science and Disaster Prevention. Currently, she collects and organizes data on natural disasters throughout Japan and engages in research that contributes to disaster prevention from a geographical perspectives. She is also active in a wide range of fields, including sharing disaster-related materials using WebGIS, conducting field surveys, and introducing traces of disasters using geoparks. In today's lecture, Ms. Suzuki will give a presentation based on her knowledge and experiences. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Suzuki with a round of applause. Ms. Suzuki, floor is yours. Thank you very much for your introduction. I am Suzuki. Well, the reason why I started this research is that I love to learn about all the disasters. So therefore, let me share the background of disasters that happened in Japan. So first of all, earthquakes, thunder, fires, and my father. Have you ever heard these words? For those of you who live in Japan, probably you have heard these words of a phrase. This is actually a Japanese proverb. And this is a list of things that are considered extremely frightening in society. And these have been used since the beginning of the 19th century. And we have a word, father. It is because of the patriarchal systems of old time of Japan. But I heard that typhoon was also called as father. So including old, we started calling it father. This is what I have heard. Well, the most terrifying thing in Japan is earthquakes. And in this proverb also, earthquakes is listed the first. The most feared natural phenomenon in Japan is earthquakes. As you have already seen a short video earlier, the natural disaster which has actually shaped the history of Japan too. Therefore, the cultures related to earthquakes and the current disaster preventions are going to be shared with you here today. The picture on the right-hand side has been taken by me in last June when I visited Noto Peninsula. There was a very old house and the first story was gone because of the disaster. So this kind of damages has happened in Japan from a long time ago. And the oldest record of damage was actually happened in 599 AD in Nara Prefecture. The earthquake itself happened in 416 AD, but after the earthquake, there was a massive damage. Therefore, people decided to create the earthquake god to worship. That actually happened in 599. And then we also have a record of Nankai Tough earthquake. Then after that, earthquake has been more shaping into what we currently know. But back then, in the era of Nara, earthquake was called as Naifuru. It is in the 8th century. And this term is actually used as a cover of some magazines. And then when it comes to a little later time, tsunami was called as Kaishu. There is a phenomenon related similar to tsunami in China. And the origin of forming tsunami was similar. That's the reason why people used to call tsunami as Kaishu. And then liquefaction happened, and liquefaction was called Hunsa until around 1964. So there were so many different terms to express earthquakes and earthquake disasters, and they have been actually changed gradually. But it is also one of our Japanese culture that we try to link with what has happened with exact terms. Well, after the earthquake, some damage occur always. An earthquake causes the following damages by strong ground shaking. For example, property damage, landslide, liquefaction, tsunami. And the types of earthquakes happening in Japan are basically divided into two. And then when it comes to tsunami, we have a distant tsunami. There is an active fault earthquakes. This is caused by the strong shaking occurs inland due to active faults. And then trench type earthquake, which is actually Nankai Trough or the Great East Great Earthquake. It is called large strong shaking and tsunami of our wide area. And then sometimes tsunami that occurs far from Japan. That is called distant tsunami. For example, there was a tsunami happened in Chile that actually affected by the earthquake. So you can see there are so many red dots on the left-hand side in this picture. If you actually check the numbers at the bottom, it is from 11:15 of June the 6th, 2025 to 11:15 of June the 7th of 2025. Therefore, it's a recent data. And those red dots are showing where earthquake occurred. The size of red dot is magnitude of each earthquake, and the color is showing the depths of the earthquake. For example, Noto Peninsula, here. This part, and also about the Pacific, the course of Pacific course, you can see there are so many dots. Those areas easy to occur earthquakes. However, there is no single date we do not have earthquakes in Japan, and it happens everywhere. So why earthquakes happen so often in Japan? So let me deep dive about earthquakes first. Why it occurs? Well, you have been here from many different countries. And this map with red dots are actually showing the distribution of earthquakes. It started from 2015 to 2023, and all the dots are showing the areas where actually earthquakes happen. And Japan is here, almost the center of this map. And it is very difficult to find Japan itself because all covered by these red dots. Well, it is clear that Japan is one of the places where earthquakes frequently occur, and then Chile in South America and west coast of the United States and Indonesia and Italy, Turkey. As you can see, they have so many earthquakes. And it is actually 1/10 of the world earthquakes occurs in Japan. 1/10 of these red dots are occurring in Japan. You can imagine how frequently earthquakes occurs here. Earthquakes occurs in Japan is due to plate subduction. These orange lines are showing subduction of plates. Plates are actually subducted inside of Earth, and when it happens, earthquake occurs. And there are 4 major plates near and covering Japan. So that's the reason why earthquakes often happen. The Pacific plate is actually pushing Japan over 8,000 times per year. So simply speaking, Hawaii is actually getting closer to Japan 8 centimeters every year. So if it lasts in 10 years, it will be 80 centimeters to Japan. Therefore, it would make earthquakes easy to occur in Japan. So this is picture shows the subduction area from the side. This ocean plate, when it's subducted, sometimes land is pulled and then bounces back to upward. So left-hand side shakes. As a result, tsunami occurs. Then sometimes the land gets cracks. That is actually called active fault earthquake. This happens often too. So subduction zone earthquake and active fault earthquake are the major earthquakes happen in Japan. And when it comes to trench-type earthquakes, it actually occurs repeatedly in the same place over a short period of time. For example, the Nankai Trough earthquake, where we are here in Tokyo, and if you come to Shikoku, Osaka, those area is called as Nankai Trough. So earthquakes occurring at intervals of 100 to 150 years in that region, and Hakuho was the most recent one. So since then, we have learned a lot. The most recent one was happened in 1944 and 1949 or 1946. Therefore, it has been already 80 years. So we are expecting that the next Nankai Trough earthquake might happen. So many researchers are preparing for that.
And also, the earthquake occurred by the active fault. Actually, the tens of thousands of years, it's very difficult to measure how often this type of earthquake occurs. But actually, this Noto Peninsula earthquake was caused by the active fault in Noto Peninsula here. And many times, by active movement of active faults, the ground is lifted many times. Because of that, this peninsula was first generated by frequent movement of active faults. That is the history of this region. Because of that, this earthquake, we have predicted this type of earthquake could occur on the Noto Peninsula, but we didn't know exactly when this earthquake occurs. And the 2024 earthquake, that was a very big earthquake caused by the active faults, but new ground was created by that earthquake. On the left-hand side, showing the Japanese the institutions of geography. This photo was taken by satellite image. The red part is newly created ground. So actually ground was lifted by the earthquake. Wajima region and Suzu region. The 4 meters lifted and also 2 meters lifted respectively. It was ocean, but the sea level was lifted. So now it became ground. So this is the pictures of the land lifted by the earthquake. I took the photo by myself. The ground, the sea level, January 2024, around noon on January 1st, 2024, this dotted line was the ocean. However, 2024, January 1st, around 4 p.m., the earthquake occurred. And then the ground was lifted. So now current sea level, the blue solid line. It was at the fishing port, so now they cannot just park the ship or boat. It was ocean before, but now it becomes the ground. So they don't know where they can just park the ships, which they don't know. But the Noto Peninsula side, the ground was now bigger than the earthquake before the earthquake occurred. So there are different phenomena caused by the earthquake and different damage and phenomenon caused. First, tsunami, an earthquake of 1,000 years ago. 2011, Great East Japan earthquake occurred. This is the once-in-a-life millennium earthquakes. On the left-hand side, please take a look at the map for a while. On the left, you see the number. Number is moving. Yellow dot, it became yellow, and it's just the color has changed over time because East Japan earthquake occurred and the shaking spread out nationwide. This earthquake is the magnitude 7, the seismic intensity 7, but now I think we can experience 6.9 the seismic intensity in the simulation of the vehicle, so you can experience how big this earthquake is. So it shook a lot in Japan nationwide, and the East Japan earthquake 1,000 years ago, a similar earthquake occurred. In 869, Jogan earthquake occurred in the same area as the East Japan earthquake, so like the Tohoku region. As you know, around the 400 year, we have the record, the paper record of the earthquakes. So Japan is a country with over 1,000 years of recorded natural disasters. And many history books have a lot of disaster in Japan. And as a result of research, East Japan earthquake in 2011, tsunami hit this area, coastal area, and also Jogan earthquake in 869 tsunami area. This area is kind of overlapped, so similar area suffered a similar experience. So in Jogan earthquake in 869, the record is on the right-hand side. It's all written in kanji, it's difficult to read. But this earthquake is recorded in one of the 6 national histories, Heian or Nara periods. This is kind of diary of recording events. And this is recorded in the Nihon Sandai Jitsuroku. So the highlighted in red frame is the Jogan earthquake. The damage was recorded, and the date of earthquakes, and what kind of shaking they suffered, and what damage they had. And I put this is a Japanese record. This is interpretation to current Japanese language. And on July 13th, 869, the big earthquake occurred in the Tohoku region on the Pacific coast. And the people screamed, and they couldn't get up, and they died because of the collapse of the buildings, or there were cracks on the ground. And there is a large sound like thunder lightnings, and under the Takajo castles, the whole ground became ocean. Over 1,000 people were killed of that disaster. At the time, 1,000 people were killed. There are many Tohoku residents there, but there are not many records of the residents. But many people, like 1,000 people, died in this earthquake. Regarding the Jogan earthquake, actually, this story was written in Japanese poet waka. In Heian period, this Jogan earthquake was a big topic. This is a famous waka poem. I want to read out. Tearing at my sleeves, I squeezed them tightly at the foot of Mount Matsuyama, where the waves crash. Seisho Nagon is a famous poet. This is a father of Seisho Nagon and Sue no Matsuyama, and it says the waves crashed. In Miyagi, Sendai Prefecture, in Takajo City, you can see the same trees. And on the East Japan earthquake, Sue no Matsuyama, tsunami didn't hit that level, but below the trees, there is a pond. And the 2 meters tsunami hit that area. And there is another waka poem. So Hyakunin issue, this is a Japanese poet. There are many poets writing about the earthquake. So it's like a tweeters of the time. So we have the recorded history of those disasters. And disaster, that earthquake caused liquefaction as well. It's a 4-story the building based on the reinforced the buildings. This was collapsed. Around 60 years ago, in 1964, I did the research on the site of the earthquake, and I took the picture. There are the round gravels at the bottom of the building. The apartment was no the foundation. After the earthquake, this building gradually tilted and finally collapsed around 15 minutes later. So the building gradually collapsed. Why? The ground became soft because of a liquefaction phenomenon. Liquefaction. When earthquake occurs and the ground is subjected to strong shocks, the soil particles that were previously in contact with each other and supporting each other become separated and causing the entire ground to become a muddy, liquid-like state. After the earthquake, the sand particles stick together, but it's now separated after the earthquake, and the ground became muddy. And then, in current Japan, we experience liquefactions. Sometimes electric poles sank, or the ground was uneven or bumpy, or some part of the ground was lifted. So liquefaction, people don't die, but it makes life very difficult because the water sewage pipes are no longer available after the disaster.
So this is the picture of Noto Peninsula earthquakes. of Uchinatacho in Isuka Prefecture. This is showing the liquefaction damage. So, unfortunately, because of the liquefaction, this ground sort of flipped and the house itself has been sort of tilted. So no one could be able to live there anymore. So similar things continues for 1 meter or 2 meters or so, and that is called liquefaction. And it actually happened there. Then landslide is also a huge damage caused by earthquakes. So this photo was taken by me during the 2016 Kumamoto earthquake. So there was a landslide from here, and the road is completely covered, and unfortunately, a university student who was walking on this road lost their lives. However, in the mountainous area, there is a culture that has been nurtured by landslides. Yamakoshi in Niigata Prefecture, Nishikigoi is very popular. Well, actually, this Nishikigoi was a cause of the landslide and heavy snowfall. Because of the earthquake, the ground itself is sort of flooded. As a result, this kind of fields have been created. And there are so many snows in Niigata. So in winter time, some roads are completely covered by snows. And see the transportation cut off. A carp became a valuable source of protein during the cold months, and leading to their cultivation. And one day, a carp with a faint red pattern appeared due to a generic mutation. So now it was very beautiful, and it's called Nishikigoi, and it has become one of their culture now. So Nishikigoi is a product of landslides and heavy snowfall, and Nishikigoi has been actually exported to many different countries. And there are some buildings crushed by earthquakes. This is a picture of Wajima from the Noto Peninsula earthquake. If you can carefully look at this picture, the houses on the left-hand side are not fallen, not collapsed. Because when this building was built, new seismic standards were applied. So with the seismic intention 1, there was no impact. And when it comes to all the buildings, if there are seismic 6 or higher, there is a higher risk of the collapse. So therefore, with the same level of seismic intensity, because of the building with a different seismic standards, the damage is very different. And there are very old houses, which are also unfortunately completely crushed by the earthquake. And building crash when they resonate with seismic waves. Well, for those of you who are familiar with physics, I'm sure you know what resonance means. It is actually happened like this. When a solid object is repeatedly subjected to natural vibration, the amplitude of its oscillation increasing progressively. And the same thing can happen with earthquakes. Short cycles occur closer to epicenter, and long cycles occur further away. And long cycle earthquakes are called long period seismic waves. And short one is called short period seismic waves. And then, if the building have the same oscillation with the earthquake, resonance occurs. As a result, building collapse. So please take a look at these pictures. The left-hand side is actually a high-rise building, and with long oscillation rhythm, high-rise building have shaken a lot. With the small one, they don't get so much impact. But with big earthquake, there is a long period seismic motion. So the high-rise building also shaking a lot. But when it comes to mid-rise to low-rise building, including this building where you are now, with a huge earthquake shake, this becomes like this. But if this is smaller, not so much, then smaller house or 1 story or 2 stories, with a big shake, probably doesn't really have impact. But when it comes to a mid-rise building, such as apartment buildings, just with a small shake, shaking a lot. But when it comes to the active fault earthquake, small houses with 1 story or 2 stories are shaken a lot. As a result, those houses are collapsed. When it comes to a big one, such as the greatest earthquake, the shake reaches many different far areas. So the shake has actually impacted Tokyo as well. So there were some shakes happening with some buildings in Tokyo too. So the shake and the impact by the earthquake is different depending on how far from the epicenter and how the resonance happens. So I'd like you to keep this in mind. Okay, try this building, a sponge building, and see how the shake is different. Well, we have already talked that the Nankai Trough earthquake is getting closer, including the area of Osaka and Shikoku are actually subject to Nankai Trough. Well, the Miyagi Prefecture's earthquake was around 1,000 kilometers away. Then let's say Osaka's earthquake was a seismic intensity 6. If Nankai Trough earthquake happened tomorrow, and you are in urban city, in a high-rise building, you feel like it's almost seismic intensity 6. So please be aware that earthquakes happens everywhere, and you feel the shake everywhere. So this is a toy called Yura Yura, Dr. Najarenda. Dr. Najarenda has a YouTube channel and explaining how the mechanism of earthquake and resonance is. So if you are interested, please watch his YouTube. While Japan is located in an area of the world that is prone to earthquakes, and in Japan there is no day without an earthquake, therefore it is essential to live with earthquakes. So as a result, gods of earthquakes are born. It was said that the cause of earthquakes were familiar creatures. A third culture of survival was born, and the terms used around the world were created. First of all, let me introduce Namazue. Maybe some of you are already familiar with this picture. Namazue, catfish picture. Ansei Edo earthquake, which happened in Tokyo in 1855, this Namazue catfish picture has been penetrated. Because the Japanese have long believed that living creatures cause earthquakes. In the Kamakura period, 12th century, it was believed that earthquakes were caused by the movement of a giant dragon surrounding Japan. The belief that it was catfish began in the Edo period, 17th century. It was believed that earthquakes were caused by the movement of catfish underground, because catfish were everywhere back then. Then the 1855 Ansei Edo earthquake led to the creation of many illustrations of earthquakes featuring catfish. And these materials are called catfish pictures, namazuye. So these are part of our research materials. There is a person who actually named it. There is a catfish in the center of this picture, and there is a man climbing on the catfish. And there is the blue-dressed person. So this is actually the god called Kashima Daijingu. Let's call him Kashima-san here. So Kashima-san is called as the god of earthquakes. Japan has so many gods. Among the gods, Kashima Daimyojin, Kashima-san is the god of earthquakes. If you actually visit Kashima Daimyojin shrine, there is a stone called Kanameishi. And that stone was believed to prevent and suppress earthquakes. So this, it says Kanameishi, Kashima Jingu, Kashima-san has Kanameishi to suppress catfish. It means Kanameishi of the shrine is suppressing earthquakes. This has been described in this picture.
In the Kashima city in this prefecture, on the right-hand side of that prefecture, this area is prone to the earthquakes around the coast area. So Ibaraki prefecture, Kashima shrine is located in the area which is prone to the earthquake. That's why it's believed that the god, which is the god of the earthquake, is responsible for the suppressing earthquakes. And this picture, this person, I lived in just have an accommodation in Ryogoku. Ryogoku is famous for sumo wrestling. For a long time, sumo is one of the traditional Japanese sports. And on this blue one is daijishin, is the earthquake. And the red person is thunderstorm. So you look at that, as we mentioned that the proverb earlier, so this is a wrestling between the earthquake and the thunderstorm. So Kashima Daimyojin acts as a referee for the wrestling match between the earthquake and the thunderstorm. So this is a very funny, the sarcastic illustration, which is called mitate in Japan. And we are not showing this, but the Chushingura. This is a famous story in Edo period. The people in Edo period know that story very well, and just based on that story, all the stories that occurred at the earthquakes, kind of the storytelling. People are just talking about those stories over generations. And now we like to focus on the words related to the earthquakes and natural disasters. Tsunami is widely used now, not only in Japan but also in the world. Just before Edo period, tsunami started using it, and it became very famous. Tsunami, that word became very popular when the era of Date Masamune and Tokugawa Ieyasu, those are the famous warriors. When they talked, they used the word tsunami. So after this occasion, tsunami word became popular. So between 1611 and 1615, what the Tokugawa Ieyasu did, there is a lot of stories about the Tokugawa Ieyasu in the book. And also in the article on the January 20th, Masamune Date of the Date clan of Sendai arrived and reported damage caused by tsunami. So now it is said that this word tsunami became famous after appearing in this famous history book. And this is the book. You see the tsunami in the highlighted in the red box. Date Masamune King, and also Keicho Sanriku tsunami earthquake occurred. and they had a severe damage, and that the Masamune suffered. And also, he is the top. Tokugawa Ieyasu is the top of the politician. And he said he experienced a major tsunami and suffered a large damage. And that story is recorded in the history book. And tsunami started being used from 1500. And not only the words, but also that we have the memorial, the stone memorial stone monuments. This is a stone monument in Iwate Prefecture. This says the stone monument of the big tsunami. So tsunami memorial monument, if you build your house on high ground, your descendants will all live in harmony. Remember the terrible tsunami that struck here. Do not build houses below the level of this stone monument. So don't build a house below this point, this stone monument. In Iwate Prefecture, there is Aneoshi area. And in 1896, and also 2011, they suffered the tsunami many times in the past. And also 1933, in 1896, Meiji Sandik tsunami hit this area, and around 20,000 people died. And Aneoshi area, only 12 houses, and all have swept away. All houses swept away. There are only 2 survivors after this tsunami. Japan at the time, when the house was gone, they just bring houses, bring relatives and rebuild the house. That is a Japanese customs. And 1933, another tsunami called Showa Sandik tsunami hit this area, and the people who rebuilt the house after the first earthquake, those people didn't know the past tsunami. And they are again the victims of the tsunami, and 89 people died, and only 4 people survived. So they decided to build a stone monument. If you build a house below this point, you suffer the tsunami. So please do not experience the tsunami anymore. So you do not build houses below this point. So in 2011, the East Japan earthquake, this is a recent earthquake. At the time, Aneoshi area, the tsunami came to 38.38 meters high. And the buildings, the villages are above the stone monument. And the buildings and all the houses are above the level of the stone monument. So they are all saved. So now, this picture shows the stone monument created by the 2011. And of course, the warning from our ancestors were heeded. So this is the memory of all the ancestors. So we have to be reminded of the disaster in the past. So Aneoshi area in Iwate Prefecture, this is a map of that area. Blue area is East Japan earthquake, the affected area by the tsunami on the 2011 tsunami. Aneoshi is here. And the stone monument saying we shouldn't build houses below this point. And tsunami, the tsunami monument, stone monument is located here. There is a shrine and other monuments. And all the houses are located above the stone monument, so they were safe. And in Japan, there are many sad stories. And to survive, what we should do, there we are many the measures taken to prevent a sad history. Kamaishi City in Iwate Prefecture, it's very famous for rugby sports. The miracle and tragedy of Kamaishi City occurs. This is about the 2011 earthquake. In Kamaishi, the junior high school students and also high school students, some of you here are around their age, so they often have the drills for the disasters, so they just evacuated to higher grounds. And also nearby nurseries and elderly welfare facilities, though people help each other to evacuate to the higher grounds. So all the people there were saved because of the evacuation. But 5 people who were absent from school, were not at school at the time, were killed. So tsunami, once tsunami occurs, it spread quickly worldwide. This is U.S. NOR. This is showing how that tsunami, 2011 tsunami, is spreading out, and the timestamp is shown at the bottom. And then time passed. After 12 hours, it reached Hawaii, and after reaching Hawaii, and also reaching the U.S. as well. So tsunami is spreading widely, and it reached the Chile off the coast. So the tsunami has been concentrated on the Chile, off the coast of Chile. Just within 24 hours, tsunami reached to that point. So the area nearby the tsunami is hit very hard. Tsunami tendenko. If tsunami strikes, immediately evacuate to high ground, each on your own. In case of Tohoku region, it takes 30 minutes to reach the tsunami. But in case of Tokyo, within 50 minutes, tsunami hit the inland. And within 5 minutes, tsunami is coming. So you have to evacuate to high ground as soon as possible. And the Sanriku coastal region is prone to the tsunami. So there is a lot of the warnings. They have to evacuate quickly when they see tsunami. So they have to save themselves before helping others to evacuate. So this is a teaching in the region. They have to evacuate by themselves first. So tendenko is the regional direct. So they have to evacuate on their own. There was tsunami summit. So tsunami tendenko is a slogan. And this slogan is used for the evacuation drill. If one of the family members survives, they can have other life. So tsunami tendenko is a slogan. People should evacuate quickly.
Then, thanks to tsunami tendenko, children actually involved all other people around them and escaped, so they were saved. However, on the other hand, many grown-ups have been died. There is a disaster prevention center in Unosumai. 150 people actually sought to refugee here. However, only 28 having survived. You all are young, so probably hard to understand, but when it comes to elderly people, they have difficulty to climb up to higher areas. And Kamaishi City always had disaster prevention drills, but the participation rates in annual evacuation drills to higher ground had been low because some elderly people had difficulty to go to higher ground. And this is a sign of the Disaster Preparedness Center. I'm going to show it, the real one, later on. And this map is showing Unozumai District, Kamaishi City. The children's schools are located here, very close to ocean. So children run very fast along the road And there was another recognizing care centers, and they all encourage each other to run to high ground. And junior high school students actually carried some children and then ran to higher ground. There is a place called Koinotoge, the higher ground, and they all reached such far. And then when it comes to grown-ups, elderly people, this red dot is shown in Unosumai District Disaster Prevention Center, and this was completely covered by tsunami, and many elderly people passed away. So currently, we have a museum for connecting lives to the future near the Disaster Prevention Center. And this picture is showing that the bar of the road, which has been floated from Kamaise City to Hawaii, along with the ocean wave, this bar has been flooded until Hawaii. And some other pictures are showing of how children communicate each other and so on. As some notes taken at the time tsunami occurred, so there were so many important materials there. So I hope you have a chance to visit this museum. Well, if earthquake happens, what should we do? First of all, we have to take measures before earthquake strikes. For example, we have to protect furniture, and we have to understand whether your area is dangerous or not. And if earthquake occurs right now, you first protect your head. Maybe I'm on the most dangerous area. First, you have to protect your head, and then secure an evacuation route. Doors are open, as you can see, and don't rush, because Japanese architecture can stay until seismic intensity 7. So please don't be panic. And if you're at home, sometimes you are using gas, but with higher than 5 seismic intensity, the gas is automatically shut off. So after the earthquake calmed down, you can shut off the gas. In Japan, we have earthquake early warning. So waves are going horizontally and vertically. So this warning is not something to predict earthquakes or forecast earthquakes. You have tried the tools with sponge. So in order to convey the message that how big the seismic intensity is, we have this warning system. So if you hear any warnings, please protect your head or evacuate to safer areas. In Japan, we have around 690 earthquake observation points. We actually have more observation points. So usually 1 per 20 kilometers. And you can actually watch earthquakes in real time. If you put a search of the strong shake monitor, you can check where earthquakes are happening right now. And as for furniture, if you actually don't place them well, this kind of picture thing happened to you. It actually happened in Juetsu earthquake. And especially in your bedroom, do not place furniture which are tall, because they could fall over. Then Japan has prepared so many great hazard maps. those maps are showing the likelihood of disaster occurring. You can actually check them via internet. Then, the last but not least, prepare yourself. Preparation for zero, primary preparation, and secondary preparations. What you need to carry with you all the times. What you should prepare as emergency bags at home. And emergency supplies. So for those emergency bags or emergency supplies, if you check via internet, there are some great references from fire department website and so please take a look at them. Well, just for your information, for water, at least 9 liters are required because approximately 3 liters per day. Food, 7,000 kilocalories, and weight 15 kilograms or more per person. Well, one tuna mayo onigiri rice bowl, one piece is approximately 200 kilocalories. Then, for example, you need to stock enough water in your bathtub and prepare enough food and so on. And here is the conclusion. Earthquakes are the most frightening natural disasters in Japan. However, they are also a source of energy that has shaped Japan physically and culturally. We have lived alongside God's wisdom, culture, and other aspects of our way of life. In addition to earthquakes, Japan is also prone to volcanic eruptions, wind and flood damage, landslides, and snow and ice disasters. Therefore, please experience the climate of Japan through natural phenomena. Well, I first explained earthquakes, thunder, fires, and my father. I hope you have understood why I mentioned these words. This is a picture which touched my heart, so I want to share it at the end. Ms. Suzuki, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please give her another warm round of applause. To our online viewers, this concludes today's broadcast. Thank you very much for your participation.